The stage lights were blinding, and the crowd buzzed with anticipation as Miguel Santos, a humble janitor from the Philippines, nervously walked onto the America's Got Talent stage. His heart pounded like a drum, each step heavier than the last. He wasn't used to the spotlight. His nights were usually spent mopping floors, not standing under them. Simon Cowell glanced at him, his skeptical expression enough to make Miguel's voice catch in his throat. "What's your name?" Simon asked. "Miguel Santos, sir," he answered softly. "And what will you be singing?" "An Elvis song. Can't Help Falling in Love." The audience exchanged doubtful looks, a few even chuckled under their breath. Miguel closed his eyes for a moment, remembering his father back home in Manila, how they'd sing together on humid nights with only an old radio and endless dreams. "Your voice is a gift, son," his father had once said. Taking a deep breath, Miguel gripped the microphone tightly, feeling its cool metal against his sweaty palms. The music began, soft and familiar, and the world around him seemed to fade. His voice trembled at first, but then it found its strength, deep, rich, and full of longing. The murmurs stopped. The crowd leaned in. Simon's expression began to change. Miguel wasn't just singing a song, he was opening his soul. Every note carried the story of a man who had faced struggle, sacrifice, and hope, and tonight, he was finally being heard. As the melody flowed, Miguel's voice grew stronger, each note trembling with emotion yet steady with faith. The deep, velvety tone carried through the silent hall like a warm breeze. He wasn't just singing "Can't Help Falling in Love," he was living it. The audience could feel it, his pain, his love, his longing. Somewhere in the second verse, his eyes lifted to the ceiling lights, shimmering like stars, and for a fleeting second, he saw his father's face smiling down at him. He remembered the nights he sang for patients in the hospital where he worked, the way music seemed to ease their pain even for a moment. Those memories filled his heart with courage. The crowd that had once doubted him now leaned forward, mesmerized. Even Simon Cowell, known for his sharp tongue, sat motionless, eyes locked on Miguel as if searching for the source of that raw, soulful power. When Miguel reached the chorus, his voice soared, blending tenderness with strength, echoing through the auditorium like a heartbeat. A woman in the front row wiped her tears. Miguel felt the emotion ripple back to him, lifting him higher. In that moment, he wasn't a janitor anymore. He wasn't a man chasing approval. He was a singer, an artist, finally standing where he was meant to be. Every note was a tribute to the sacrifices, the dreams, and the love that had carried him across oceans to this one shining moment. As Miguel sang, flashes of his past began to flood his mind like a movie playing behind his eyelids. He saw himself sweeping the empty hallways of a hotel in Manila, humming Elvis songs to keep himself awake through the long night shifts. He remembered sending nearly all his salary back home so his little sister could stay in school, sometimes skipping his own meals to make sure his mother had her medicine. He had always dreamed of singing on a real stage, but life struggles buried that dream beneath the weight of responsibility. Yet even in the darkest moments, music had been his refuge, the one place where pain turned into beauty. The lights on stage blurred as tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't stop singing. Instead, he sang harder, stronger, pouring every hardship into the lyrics. The audience could sense it, the honesty, the ache, the hope. Each word seemed to carry a lifetime of resilience. Simon leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, not in criticism but in wonder. Miguel wasn't performing, he was testifying. The song became a bridge between his past and his present, a melody of survival. By the time he reached the final chorus, the entire hall was silent, hanging on every word. For the first time in his life, Miguel felt completely seen, not as a worker, not as a foreigner, but as a man whose voice had finally found its place in the world. As the song built toward its climax, Miguel felt something ignite deep inside him, a mix of pain, love, and gratitude all rising together. His voice trembled for a second, and the microphone almost slipped from his hand, but he steadied himself and closed his eyes. He thought of his mother, sitting thousands of miles away, praying for him in a small church in Manila. He thought of his father's laughter, echoing from the past. Then, with every ounce of strength left in him, Miguel sang the final verse, his voice breaking free, powerful yet tender, soaring through the hall like a prayer. The audience didn't just hear him, they felt him. The words, "Take my hand, take my whole life too," rang out with such sincerity that people in the crowd began to cry. When the last note faded, silence blanketed the room. For a heartbeat, there was nothing, no movement, no sound, just the lingering echo of his soul. Then came the eruption, applause, cheers, gasps. Some audience members stood instantly, others clasped their hands over their mouths, stunned. Even Simon Cowell, who rarely showed emotion, blinked hard, visibly moved. Miguel stood frozen, tears streaming down his face, unable to believe what had just happened. For years he had sung to empty rooms, yet tonight, his voice had reached thousands, and perhaps millions more beyond. In that moment, he realized he hadn't just sung a song, he had changed his life forever. The judges rose to their feet, applause thundering through the arena. Miguel stood motionless, overwhelmed, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Then, Simon Cowell, usually stoic, often critical, leaned forward and pressed the microphone button. "Miguel," he said, his tone softer than anyone had ever heard from him. The crowd hushed instantly. "I've listened to thousands of singers, but what you just did, that wasn't a performance. That was pure heart." Miguel blinked, stunned. Simon continued, "You didn't just sing Elvis, you became the emotion behind every word. It's what music is supposed to be." The audience roared, chanting Miguel's name. Suddenly, one of the judges reached out and slammed the golden buzzer. Time seemed to slow. Gold confetti rained down from the ceiling like a shower of dreams finally coming true. Miguel covered his mouth in disbelief, tears spilling freely. He looked up, letting the golden light fall over him, as if his father's spirit was there, smiling through every sparkle. The crowd's energy was electric, strangers cheering, crying, celebrating his triumph. Simon stood, clapping slowly but sincerely, eyes glistening with respect. Miguel took a shaky breath, overwhelmed by gratitude. He had come to this stage as a janitor with a forgotten dream, but he was leaving as something far greater, a symbol of hope. In that golden rain, he wasn't just a contestant, he was proof that no dream is too far when it's carried by love, faith, and perseverance. Backstage, Miguel stood trembling, still covered in golden confetti, unable to process what had just happened. His hands shook as he reached for his phone, dialing home. After a few rings, his mother's face appeared on the screen, her eyes already wet with tears. "Miguel, Anak, I saw it. You did it," she cried, her voice breaking. Miguel smiled through his own tears. "Mama, this was for you, for all the nights you believed in me when no one else did." His mother placed her hand on the screen as if she could touch his face through it. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. Miguel's throat tightened. For a long moment, neither spoke, just cried softly, connected across oceans by love and triumph. Around him, producers and crew members clapped, some wiping their own tears. The golden buzzer moment was already trending online, millions of people sharing his performance, calling it the most heartfelt audition in AGT history. But Miguel didn't care about fame. What mattered was that his voice, once confined to empty rooms and mop-filled hallways, had finally reached hearts around the world. He looked up at the stage lights one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Papa." Then, with a smile full of gratitude and disbelief, he stepped out to meet fans waiting for him, proof that dreams born in struggle could still shine brighter than gold. The world hadn't just heard his song, they had felt his soul.